Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, an associate, a colleague, a family member, an enemy, anyone in between. I'm almost at that second milestone of 250, so see if you can get me there by the end of this week, and I truly appreciate it. Now, usually this would be a weekend wrap type situation, but there hasn't been a huge amount of boxing on, so there wasn't really a need to have an exercise just in that. And there's been quite a few interesting stories that have happened over the week, so I thought I'd give some brief takes on some of the more interesting ones, and yeah, let's see where we go from there. So without further ado, let's start. As best a place to start as any is the action that did take place over the weekend, and I think it's only right we start with the first match on Saturday, which was MairisBriedis versus JoeJoyce for the IBF and Ring Magazine Cruiserweight Championships. Now, it's weird to me that the Ring Magazine title would be on the line when someone is not considered number one or number two in the division, because I always thought that's the rules, like the number one and the number two get to fight for the Ring Championship, but clearly not. So I believe, as we saw in the fight, JoeJoyce managed to win a unanimous points decision against MairisBriedis, and is now the IBF, the Ring Magazine, and the lineal champion of the division. So, hey, good on him. Now, the fight itself, initially I wasn't sure how to get it, and then I found that it was on Fight TV. Now, it was $12.99. And look, money ain't that tight, but I'm like, $12.99, that's a bit steep, but eventually I was like, you know what, I couldn't find any streams. It was halfway through the fight. I said, you know what, let me buy it, and then I'll just run it back to the beginning, sort of after it's finished. Well, I bought it, and I saw it from sort of the 9th round on, and pretty much everything I saw at that point was MairisBriedis kind of dominating, but I had heard some reports that Jai was winning a couple of the earlier rounds. So I was looking, but I just see Briedis' face was a crimson mask. Then Jai's got, his eyes a bit all puffed up. Then his mouth started swinging a bit. It got a bit scrappy. There was a lot of like inside, clinching and punching on the inside and everything. But it was a good little battle. Jai was hanging in there from the southpaw stance, and sort of when rounds 11 and 12 came, I thought, he looks worse for wear, like he's about to go. But he managed to hold on. He clinched. He kept on the inside. He tried to remain as safe as possible, and ultimately he got a decision. I rewound it back straight afterwards and watched the whole fight, and clearly he swept the first 6 rounds clean. There was an argument that I could have given the second round and possibly even the third to MairisBriedis, but I didn't, because I just feel like he didn't do enough. So it was 6-0 by then. I gave Briedis the 7th, I gave him the 8th, I gave Jai the 9th, although it was a close one. Like, it could have been either way, because ultimately Briedis, he caught him with a couple of really good shots that looked like they hurt, but Jai kind of walked through them and carried on doing his work. So I said he just nicked it by a little bit more activity. Then I gave Briedis the 10th and the 11th, and then I gave him the 12th as well. So I actually had it 115, 113. I know some people potentially would have given him the 10th as well, but no, I thought Briedis sort of just did enough in that round. But yeah, from round 7, you could see that Briedis started making those adjustments. He started closing the distance a bit quicker. He was catching JoeJoyce with a couple uppercuts, some straight. So he was using the backhand straight instead of throwing the jab. He was coming straight, I call the bull rush style, like rushing in with the straight right hand, which caught JoeJoyce a couple of times. He also hit him a few times on the sort of on the back foot counter with the right as well. It was just a great fight to watch. I recommend anyone who hasn't seen it watch the fight, because it was tactically, it was sort of high level in that sense. It was a brutal fight. Like, JoeJoyce, I think his jaw's broken in like 2 or 3 places. He couldn't speak after the fight. You had Briedis, he was cut from round 1. He had a cut over his eye, his nose is broken, couldn't breathe out of his nose for the majority of the fight. He also had, I think, another cut in the middle of his, over the other eye as well. So his face was a crimson mask. Upper tire was, you know, bleeding, broken up, busted up. It was definitely a fight where both guys earned their money, and Briedis said he would love to do the rematch. I don't know if Jai Opetaia is going to be receptive to that, you know, anytime in the near future. But even if he was, he probably ain't coming back into the ring for at least 10 months, because that jaw is going to take a long time to reset and reset properly. And then obviously you have to factor in sparring and everything else. Like, it's going to take a while before you even get to spar again afterwards. But yeah, excellent fight. So if you guys haven't seen it, like, definitely need to. Now let's segue that into the Frank Warren card that came on, which had Zolani Tete and Jason Cunningham, and also JoeJoyce and Christian Hammer. Now, the Tete fight, I thought it was a bit weird that Frank would sort of have, you know, a guy like Cunningham in there with him, but it was a bit weird to try and work out who he was really favouring, because just like when he had Brad Foster against Baluta, and I was at that fight, and it seems like he's, you know, for as much as he was talking about, you know, Joseph Parker, well, he's the Australian or the New Zealand, he's the away fighter, he's not the draw, it's, you know, JoeJoyce. Like, you're putting your quote-unquote draws in against these, you know, the quote-unquote foreign fighters that they don't really have the advantage against. And Tete, I haven't watched the whole fight, but I've seen the knockout, and geez, like, yeah, Brad Foster should not have been in there with someone like Tete. I mean, if you're gonna put him in there, you need to put him in there against either someone that's a non-puncher like he is, or against someone that's like super slow. You know, Tete is 5'9" with like a 70, I think he's got like a 78-inch reach or something like that, so 76, something crazy for, what is he, a featherweight or super bantam featherweight, like somewhere along those, in those weight classes at the moment. Like, it's yeah, it's strange decision. But yeah, I can't talk too much about that. I didn't see much of it. I did see JoeJoyce and Christian Hammer, and JoeJoyce has a habit of being on a long layoff for whatever reason and looking like absolute dog shit in his first fight back, but then looking relatively good in his next fight. So he's definitely a guy that needs activity in order to get the best out of himself. This layoff, I can't 100% blame him. Apparently, you know, he had the broken wrist or whatever, but if you're getting clapped, he didn't even get clipped, he got clapped by Christian Hammer on numerous occasions in the first 2 rounds, to the point I think he lost both of those rounds quite convincingly. And don't get me wrong, one good thing he does do, as I've always said, he's got very fast feet for a big guy, and he's always able to get into range. So he was able to smother Hammer and, you know, make him work and hold him and walk him back to the rope. So you could see Hammer's gas tank just started to drain extremely quickly. He wasn't in shape for the type of fight that JoeJoyce was going to provide. Had he have maybe been in a little better shape, I reckon he could have at least lasted to like round 6 or 7. JoeJoyce did manage to, you know, start reading his patterns and, you know, get his arms up to sort of start blocking shots from like sort of round 3 and round 4, and obviously that's when he took out Hammer, just started working to the body, and Hammer couldn't really he couldn't adjust back. But in those first 2 rounds, extremely sloppy. Yeah, he's been out of the ring for a year, and I don't know if the link up with Frank Warren was really the one that he should have taken, because ultimately, as I said, activity is his best friend, and he's not been active with Frank at all. Even after having the you know, the win over Daniel Dubois, he segued that, I think it was 7 months later, 7 or 8 months later, he was in the Takam fight. But even before the Dubois fight, there was Mikhail Valish, and then I think there was another year of inactivity before that. He's just not been active enough with Frank Warren. He just can't get the fights, whether it's they can't pay the necessary money, or the fights ain't big enough for him to be able to, you know, get up for them or whatever. But at the age of 36, like, he needs that activity, especially this type of style he has. and if he's gonna keep becoming inactive and taking them kind of shots, as I said on Twitter yesterday, when it comes to like the top 10 and even some, I would say maybe down to the top 15, that chin is not going to hold up forever, especially against those guys that not only can crack but can take your and can last your pace, and that can stop you from hitting them, because obviously everyone knows the shots that land take a lot less out of you than the shots that don't. So what happens when you've got a guy in there that you can't actually land on, or you know, they're moving about, you can't really hit them, so you're swinging and missing a lot more than you're actually connecting? That's going to be a problem. But look, Frank Warren said that he's going to be out again on the 24th of September. I hope that that's the case. I don't know who it's going to be against, but I do hope it's a tough test, a top 15 at minimum. I'm hearing a lot of talk about sort of Frank Sanchez at the moment. I actually think that would be a very good fight for JoeJoyce, because he's going to have to work on closing the distance. He's going to have to be switched on. Sanchez isn't the hardest of punchers, but he punches hard enough to respect, so you have to respect him, and he's fleet-footed. So it's not one of Joe's most favorable styles. So let's see. They're talking even about Daniel Dubois rematches or whatnot. I don't know if that one really makes too much sense right now, but yeah, it was a workman-like performance. He got the job done, but it was less than stellar. And yeah, he needs to be active minimum 3 times a year. Even if 2 of them are knockover jobs and one's a hard fight, that activity needs to be there, especially for someone like him, where timing is everything, and you know, conditioning is his biggest asset. But you know, he got the job done, so well done, even though he was around too early. So Regis Prograis has been on Twitter and Instagram recently, not very happy with the WBA and the WBC, because Josh Taylor vacated the WBC title, basically saying that he wouldn't be ready in time after having his wedding and his honeymoon or whatever, so he wants to vacate that title. So he now is the lineal, the ring, the IBF and the WBO champ. He vacated the WBA and the WBC. Now he's claiming that he wants that Jack Catterall fight immediately. He wants that rematch. I don't know if it's going to happen, but we will find out. But yeah, back to Prograis. He's saying like he was in the WBA rankings, yet for some reason he was taken out of the rankings, not able to fight for an eliminator for the vacant title. For the WBC, I mean, that one to me makes a bit of sense as to why he's not the number 1 ranked, or he won't be fighting or eligible to fight for that vacant title. Ramirez was the very last WBC champion. He's won matches since then. He's obviously still paying his sanctioning fees. He's probably very high up in their rankings. And Jose Zapata is the actual mandatory for the belt. So that one makes sense. WBA, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like that's just a bit of bad luck. But also, I can say that could very well be mismanagement, because everyone knows, like, he's with Lou DiBella, who isn't the greatest in terms of getting his people into certain situations, unless like another big promoter's involved. And that whole signing with Pro Bellum, when you could have signed with Matchroom or Top Rank, or you know, maybe even PBC, that one maybe wouldn't have made as much of a sense. But even you could have fought with Sky or Wasserman, you could have fought with any of these established, but you went with Pro Bellum, and we all see what's happened with that. So it could just be a fact that you might be a little bit blackballed at the moment because of the whole, you know, Kinahan thing. I don't know. No speculations here. I'm not really one to do that, but yeah, it's unfortunate, because obviously he's one of the best in the division, but he just hasn't been fighting the necessary fights, I guess, to keep him at that top, sort of at that top echelon in people's minds. And yeah, the promotional situation was clearly a misstep in his career. So I hope he can bounce back from that, and we can see him in some big fights moving forward. But it's not looking good at the moment. Now the big news, which probably isn't the most well-kept secret in the world, is that the AliciaBaumgardner and Michaela Mayer unification, 3-belt unification match at, what is it, super featherweight, is going to be taking place on the undercard of Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall on September the 10th at the O2 Arena. So I'll tell you right now, I will be there. 100%, I'm going to be at that event. Now, it's weird that you've got 3 out of 4 Americans fighting in the UK, but it makes perfect sense when you realize someone like Bob Arum, who virtually could give 2 shits about women's boxing, realizes that the market for women's boxing at the moment is in Europe and possibly Mexico. Now, he probably thought, well, if I give this to Sky, I can get a licensing fee from them. It will draw a big enough crowd over there that it will make money, that it will make sense. We can have it over here in the afternoon, and then maybe segue that into another big card that we're going to put on later on in the day. Who knows? But what I do know is, I mean, I put on Twitter about a month and a half ago, 6-7 weeks ago, that Alicia, you should just make your home the UK anyway, because I feel like she's got a much bigger following over here than she has in the US. And even though she's still growing that following over there, I feel like when a lot of boxers from America come over to the UK, they realize the difference in passion between the fans and the way how they get behind you and they support you, and they give you that energy. Whereas in America, unless you're like top of the top, they're not really as passionate for you in the same way, and they're a lot more of a if there's nothing else going on, then we'll check out the boxing kind of crowd, apart from obviously the hardcores. And I think a lot of them just realize the love that they get over here is unrivaled, and so if you make your base out here, ultimately you can have a very, very good career. Plus, not to be shady, but the pound's stronger than the dollar. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to both of those fights. I'll say I will be in attendance, like come hell or high water. I will, whether I have to go and fight for press accreditations, I might have to speak to my good guy Maestro and see if he wants me to do a little, do a little thing out there with that. I'll be in the stands, or anywhere in between, because that will be a great event. And as my boy Julius from Ring IQ did put in one of his previous videos, the gloves are off has to be done for both of those fights. He says that he wants Natasha Jonas to do it. Hey, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I just don't think I think she's too nice. She's not needly enough to be able to kind of say the right things, in my opinion, that can kind of get them going. I mean, they're going to go anyway, but she might look a bit uncomfortable in the middle, as opposed to someone that could really feed off of it. I don't really have any other selections apart from obviously Johnny Nelson, who, he's just the master of the gloves are off at this point, or even someone like Anna Woolhouse maybe doing it, or maybe even getting one of the new Valkyries to do it, Lauren Price, maybe get one of them in the middle, or one of the older one of the older fighters that they've got on the roster of the women's division. Who knows? But definitely it's a big fight, and I guess it makes sense to do it over here, even though realistically they should be building much bigger brands in the US. But hey, get that money any way you can get it. No issue with that on this side whatsoever. I guess before I go, I'll touch on the Anthony Joshua news that came out a couple days back, where he basically said that he was shocked when Alexander Usyk's name was called as the winner of his fight with him back in September last year, as he believed that he was winning. His team told him basically he was doing great work, he was winning the fight. All I will say to that is, if that's the case, I can see exactly why there is no Joby Clayton and Rob McCracken in that team anymore. However, for some reason, I don't think it would have been Rob telling him that, yeah, you're winning this fight, or all the way through. He said that no one told him that he was losing. Here's one thing that I want to say with regards to that to me comes down to poor ring IQ, because if you are in a fight like that where you're not dominating and it's a little competitive, then you yourself have to then say, okay, I need to make an adjustment just to make sure this is a bit more comfortable. I'm supposed to be this knockout guy, so even if I'm boxing with him now, let me try and step it up and go for the knockout, or just like make these rounds a lot more conclusive. So if you're listening to your team and they're telling you I'm winning, but you're out of breath and you can't see that whatever's happening is, you know, it doesn't seem to be 100% going your way, I think that's more of a flaw in your character as opposed to the team's. So I mean, yeah, those two guys look like they're gone now. I mean, did Angel have anything to do with that as well? I don't know, but ultimately we've got Garcia in there, and I'm pretty sure that Robert Garcia will tell you if you're not winning that fight. But that remains to be seen. I just wanted to touch on that because ultimately it was a weird statement, and I don't understand how you, even in the midst of that fight, can be saying like, oh yeah, like I'm winning this, or I'm in there, I'm pretty much neck and neck. I mean, with someone like, you know, Craig Richards and Joshua Buatsi, I can see where you might think that, oh, you're doing a lot better in some rounds than you are because, you know, you're controlling a lot of it. But Joshua was like never controlling any of that fight apart from maybe 3 or 4 rounds in the middle of the fight. But yeah, I wanted to touch on that real quick before I bounced out of here. So as always, thank you for watching. I would have done more videos this week, but ultimately I've been a little bit under the weather. Something's going around, so I'm trying to fight that. Plus I had to binge my Stranger Things and my Umbrella Academy, The Boys, so you know, that sort of ate into some of the time. I've got plans for a few videos in the week, so hopefully I'm actually going to do one of them tonight so I can drop that on Wednesday along with a couple other bits and pieces. We'll see whatever else comes out in the news, but for right now, thank you for watching, and Hardcore Casual out.